Just to follow Cooper, I want to thank my advisor, Ann Fadman, who could not attend. And also you guys for sticking through 2 hours. A little bit of context. Means Korean, mother in Korean.
Mama, rather. It's a more affectionate term for mother.
And on those arms, there'll be 2 apples. 1. In January 2007, while covering a trial in Queens, New York, a photographer for the New York Daily News took a snapshot of a frail little boy. The image and accompanying article appeared on page 24 the next day, with part of the headline reading, "Silent Boy Makes Loud Statement." In the photograph, the boy wears khaki trousers, a Prussian blue sweater, and a cobalt bandana. He has a handsome button nose and wispy eyebrows, the left a little darker than the right. His head tilts to the left, and his creamy white hands lie on his right thigh. He slouches slightly in his blue and gray canvas stroller, and his eyes, behind asymmetrical slits, gaze lazily at the floor. The article compares him to a rag doll, but to me, perhaps because of the camera flash and the pale glow of his face, he resembles a plastic mannequin. Sitting in a library 4 years later, I stare at the image and presume that anyone could mistake the boy's face for my own. I note the caption, "The boy, a Korean, was 8 when the photograph was taken. I, a half-Korean, also wore a bandana at that age. I had his puffy cheeks, his pursed lips, and his black medium-length hair. It's true that he didn't have my oily skin, double chin, or crooked Roman nose, and I didn't have his drooping stare. But since he looks enough like me in the graininess of the newspaper print, I think about the differences that the image fails to convey. That though the boy appeared to be physically unharmed, he was the victim of a violent crime. That 3/4 of his brain was destroyed. That around his neck he wore a bandana to catch his drool. That his feet were bound to the chair because he could not control his legs. That he would never be able to use his right arm. That he was blind. The photograph was taken on the 8th day of a 3-week trial, the only day the boy appeared in court. His presence sparked controversy. The defense lawyer, Michael Dow, did not wish the motion to compromise the jury's objectivity. But the presiding judge, Richard Buckner, believed no harm would come from the child's presence. "There's nothing grotesque or inflammatory about it," he said during the trial. "It's simply a little boy sitting in a wheelchair." Later that day, the boy's father, Sung Hak-an, told the Daily News that he found the visit essential. "I just want to see justice," An said. He lost his life. The boy sat before the jury as a neurologist, Yale Solomon, enumerated his injuries. Solomon said he suffered from seizures, could not respond to his name, and would never be able to eat or use the bathroom by himself. After she concluded her presentation, Buckner warned the jurors not to surrender to sympathy. Yet the effect on the courtroom was clear. Though the boy sat there for only a minute, his appearance was enough to compel at least one court attendee to tears. The defendant, my mother. 11 days later, the jury found that in March 1999, 8 years before the trial, Zapana had shaken then 7-month-old Ru An so vigorously that the fibrous brain cells and blood vessels within his skull had snapped. On February 7, 2007, the day the jury unanimously convicted my mother, the police took her into custody and transported her to a holding cell in Rose M. Singer Center, a 1,700-bed detainment facility on Rikers Island, New York. That night, I came home, hoping I would eat my mother's kimchi jjigae. Instead, I learned from my father that she had been on trial during the last few weeks, and that she had lost. The verdict made no sense, he said. She had told him she'd not do it. He knew she'd not do it. A few days later, during a collect phone call from Rikers, my mother echoed those same claims of innocence. She also told me that she could not forgive herself for leaving me, and that we would be together soon. Today, 4 years after trial, I realized that what my mother told me during that first phone call from Rikers was the truth. 7 years, the length of her prison sentence, is not such a long time. Soon can mean 7 years. 7 years of lying to my friends, missing my mother's birthday, and wondering what happened to Ruan on March 3rd, 1999, when he checked into New York Presbyterian Hospital, Weill Cornell Medical Center, with symptoms later diagnosed as shaken baby syndrome. This is a story about controversial science, 2,000 pages of hospital and trial records, and a boy unable to leave his stroller. This is also a story about my mother, Yun Zapana, who will be released from prison in 2013 or 2014, and who has been misidentified in articles, legal documents, and a lawyer's resume as Yun Zapana, Y-U-N, her name is Y-O-O-N, Yon Jopana, and Charles Zarate. And this is a story about my attempt to determine whether the jury made a mistake. For years I have clung to the assumption that my mother did nothing wrong, but I've never truly known. And not knowing what happened feels far too close to believing that she lifted Ruan, shook him back and forth, and watched him drool, convulse, and seize. Can I do the second? Can I do the second? Second. Number 2. There's no need for context here. I tried to ignore all this. This is a little more than halfway through the piece, sorry. It was my senior year at Stuyvesant. I stayed out late because I wanted not only to hang out, but also to avoid going home. One day in school, a friend who had worked as an editor at the school newspaper approached me and asked whether I had a relative who had been on trial. I looked at him, feigning confusion. He continued, "We were talking about stories for the next issue, and we came across something in the Daily News about he paused, a pretty bad trial, and someone brought up that the defendant's last name was the same as yours, and that she lived where you lived." My cheeks started to redden. "So do you know what's up? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I replied. "I would hope you guys don't bring it up or talk about it." He took a step back. "Well," he stuttered, "we were going to write something on it anyway. It happened outside the school. Yeah, we won't bring it up again." It was then that I realized I couldn't wait to leave for Yale. So I finished my classes, spent the summer at home, occasionally visiting my mother in prison, hiked the Berkshires for a week, avoiding a visit, moved into my freshman year dorm, escaping New York, and joined the college newspaper to write story after story, proclaiming my last name. I told classmates that my mother was a housewife, and when some of them came to my house, I told them she was away traveling in Korea. I focused on journalism, not on classes, because whenever I read a book or wrote an essay, my mind would wander to the memories of that February night in 2007. This is when my father told me what happened. I restricted my free time, no thoughts of my mother. Yet thoughts kept coming. One day I started screaming in my dorm bedroom because I could not find my car keys, which I needed for the next day's drive to my mother's prison. Another day, without provocation, I burst into tears in front of one of my roommates, an economics major from Bulgaria. To explain, I felt that I needed to tell him about my mother's incarceration. I said I did not want him to think less of me. He vowed that he would not. Still, I could not tell him my mother's crime. I was too afraid that he would break his promise. I had not told my family about these outbursts. My parents rely on me to lead a happy American life. We never finished college, my father would say, so you're on your own to figure it out. We trust you. They believe that I can make millions, have a beautiful family, and pay for their retirement all by myself. I cannot tell them that some nights I lie on my couch in a fetal position, yearning for the smell of my mother's citrusy shampoo. I have had enough. It has taken me 4 years to remember that the fetal position is not how I respond to difficulties. My mother taught me to use my brain. Treat every issue like a math problem. Break it into steps, understand each one, and solve it. Do not stop until success has been achieved. All problems have solutions. Thank you.